All right. I'd like to start off by saying Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rachakudash. All right. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is They Laughed Us to Scorn. Now, what is this topic all about? Well, pretty much yesterday I was listening to the book of Nehemiah, and it prompted me to read the second chapter. And as I was reading through the second chapter of Nehemiah, it kind of put the idea in mind of what's happening today on a spiritual level. Because back during the time of the Medo-Persian Empire, after the Babylonians had destroyed the temple, you had a lot of adversaries of ours from all different nations that were coming to Jerusalem to try to stop the building of the temple, the physical building of the temple. Because you have to remember the temple was in disarray, the walls were broken down, the daily sacrifices and everything that was happening and going on that connected us to the Most High was pretty much done, gone. And the only thing that was left was the hope that our forefathers had in Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. So what the Lord did was he put the spirit upon Nehemiah, and other leaders and prophets back then to build or rebuild the temple. And when that happened, you had the nations that saw the destruction, that rejoiced at the destruction of Jerusalem and our destruction and us going into captivity. And they saw the rebuilding of the temple and they got upset. And what they did was they came to Jerusalem, as we're going to read, and pretty much they ridiculed us. They laughed us to scorn, as the title of the lesson is, which we're going to read. So when I read that, it made me think of today, how we're spiritually building the temple back up, and these heathens are laughing us to scorn. But back then, those heathens knew that we were Israelites. Today, they're laughing us to scorn for spiritually building this truth with the facts that the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians are indeed the Israelites. So it made me think of that, So back then, the building was physical. Now the building is spiritual. The Lord is building up his third temple, and we're being mocked and ridiculed because that's nothing new. That goes back to Deuteronomy 28. We shall become an astonishment, a byword, a proverb, and pretty much to these Edomites and the other nations, all we are just pretty much niggas and spicks and spooks and wetbacks, tontos, servants, slaves, cooks, janitors, maintenance individuals, mechanics, dancers, singers. Nothing has changed since slavery except for the time and the technology. So they're still mocking and ridiculing us. So Lord's will, this lesson will be edifying. I want to get into some precepts dealing with this whole situation, and let's see where the Spirit takes us. First scripture I want to start off with is Ecclesiastes 3:1. It says, "To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven." And we are right now in the season of rebuilding the tabernacles of David, which we're going to get later on in the lesson, or if the Spirit wants it to come out before that. So that's where we're at right now. So let's jump to the third verse. It says, "A time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up." So the breaking down already took part, just like it took part back then during the Babylonian Empire, and the building part came during the Medo-Persian Empire. So now we're in a time of building up, but this time the building is being built up spiritually, because the third temple is or are the nation of Israel being built back up. Now let's jump to the fifth verse. A time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones. And this is where we're at. We're in a time to gather stones. And the stones that are being gathered are the different Israelites that are a part of the bricks for this building. Yahweh Shai himself being the head, the chief cornerstone. And the men that you see coming into this thing, you know, we say we're of the hopeful elect. We're saying that humbly because we want to be and we hope to be the elect. We don't know. But each individual brother that's coming into this thing is a brick. And these bricks are being tried to make sure that they are sturdy, stable enough, and meet to use to build this temple, the spiritual temple. So we're in a time to gather stones together. Verse 7, a time to rend, which is a time to break down, and a time to sow. And we're in the time of sowing, because the Lord is sowing together the brotherhood of Israel that was broken down and bringing back the tabernacles of David that had fallen. So what we're going to do, like I said, we're going to go to Nehemiah, the 2nd chapter. And this, when you read Ezra, Nehemiah, scriptures like that, certain scriptures in Isaiah and Jeremiah and Ezekiel and all that, these were times when the temple was broken down. Now and then when you get to the Medieval Persian Empire, the tabernacles were being built up. So this is after the destruction of that the Babylonians caused and the building up of the temple and the sanctuary and all that, beginning with the decree from Cyrus, which was stopped and then resumed during the time of Darius. So Nehemiah 2:17 says, Then said I unto them, you see the distress that we are in. This is dealing with Nehemiah speaking to the men that were with him. How Jerusalem lieth waste, because they went to look at the land. It says, and the gates thereof are burnt with fire. Come and let us build up the wall of Jerusalem, that we be no more a reproach. So right now, the Lord is spiritually building up the walls of Jerusalem with the Israelites, that we be no more a reproach, because right now we are a reproach. We are ashamed. Not that we're ashamed, but to the world, we're despicable. We're shameful. You know, we're the downtrodden. You know, they look at us like the only place you belong is in the ghetto, in the slum, in the barrio, in the favela, in the shanty town. You know, the lowest of the low. That's how they look at us. So the Lord is spiritually building us up, and these nations see it, and what do? They ridicule and mock, and say within themselves is, how dare you say that you are the children of the Most High? Don't you know that y'all just niggas and speaks and spooks and wetbacks and tontos? It says, then I told them of the hand of my power which is good upon me, as also the king's words that he had spoken unto me, because he petitioned before Artaxerxes to give him letters and substance to be able to build, you know, Jerusalem back then physically. And they said, let us rise up and build. So they strengthened their hands for this good work. Why? Because back then Jake was catching hell. You know, they were mentally distressed. You know, they were sorrowful, mourning. You know, here it is, the sanctuary. You know, Jerusalem was trodden down. That was our main center of worship that was destroyed. So we were destroyed. So, but they strengthened themselves to be able to build this the tabernacles and the sanctuary back. Just like today, you know, we're going through what we're going through, you know, downtrodden, you know, mournful and all of that. But the Lord is strengthening us to still be able to build up the spiritual tabernacle, the spiritual sanctuary on the earth, and bringing back all of these different bricks that are meet for the building of the nation of Israel. It says, but when Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the servant, the Ammonite, and Geshem the Arabian heard it, when they heard of this, when they heard of us building, just like today, when they hear of us building spiritually back the tribes, they laughed us to scorn and despised us and said, what is this thing that you do? Will you rebel against the king? So it says when they heard this, just like today, vocabs and your Dr. James White, the Edomite, and the rest of those clowns, right? They laugh us to scorn at the thought of us trying to build, build ourselves back up. So when we look up this word, laugh to scorn, it goes to the Hebrew word la'aig. It says to mock, deride, ridicule. And that's why vocab does those stupid cartoons, Street Fighter cartoons and all this other cartoon character bullshit. Why? Because they're mocking us. They're ridiculing us. They're deriding us. To mock, deride, having derision. To stammer, to mock, deride. Let's see. By implication, as if imitating a foreigner to speak unintelligibly. And that's what they look at us as speaking unintelligibly. But we're in good hands because they looked at Yahushua the same way. They looked at the apostles the same way. How that they perceived them to be unlearned men. Unlearned and ignorant men. So that's how they look at it as being unintelligent, not being sound of mind, being bugged out. And that's why they laugh at us. Because Jake has been the laughingstock of the world, beginning with Judah. But now the Lord is going to get us the respect that we deserve. That's why it says in Zephaniah 3 and 19, it says, behold, at that time I will undo all that afflict thee. And this is an affliction coming from these heathens, coming at us with this crazy bugged out breakdowns of Deuteronomy, how it doesn't apply to us and blah, 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 the sun, moon, stars. And I will save her that halteth, because we did halt, because our shit came to a complete stop at one time. But now the wheels are back on the cart and we're moving forward through the spirit and power of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. It says, and gather her that was driven out. And we were driven out. We were driven out from our land. We were driven out from our heritage. We were driven out from our culture. We were driven out from our language. We were driven out from our book. But now the Lord is raising us back up. It says, and I will get them praise and fame in every land where they have been put to shame. And that's what's happening right now. And that's why these heathens are deriding us, mocking us, ridiculing us. Pretty much, when they say, when they try to use or say Yahweh's name, and they'll say Shamalama Ding Dong stuff, that's what they're doing, mocking us unintelligibly. Having derision, laugh to scorn, mock on, stammering. So to them, we're a bunch of fools. All right, so laugh to scorn. And the word despised us. Baza, to despise, hold in contempt, disdain. See, they disdain us. They hold us in contempt. They despise us. Regard with contempt, to be despised, to be despicable, to be vile, worthless, to cause to despise. So we're pretty much vile in their face. We're worthless to them. That's what the scriptures say. We will become a proverb and a byword among these nations. And to despise someone, let's look that up real quick. Despise, feel contempt or a deep repugnance for. See? Feel contempt or a deep repugnance for. Let's look up the word contempt. The feeling that a person or thing is beneath consideration. But the scriptures say that we would not be reckoned among the nations, worthless or deserving scorn. Whoo! Disregard for something that should be taken into account. And we are disregarded. We should be taken into account, but we are disregarded because they look at us as nothing but more than spicks and spooks and wetbacks and all of that. And then they'll tell you, they'll turn around and say that they're not racist. And that's why Vocab wanted to do a parody about slavery. And he wanted Jay, the producer, to help him do that. And that dude laughed, but I could tell he was uncomfortable. All right, now let's get one more word and let's move on. The word disdain. It says the feeling that someone or something is unworthy of one's consideration or respect. See? And that's why they laugh us to scorn. So going back, let's read that again. It says, but Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the servant, the Ammonite, the Geshem and Geshem the Arabian heard it. They laughed us to scorn and despised us and said, what is this thing that you do? Will you rebel against the king? So now let's go from there to a couple of precepts on that. Go to Psalms, the 44th chapter and the 13th verse. Thou makest us a reproach to our neighbors, a scorn and a derision to them that are round about us. And we are a scorn and derision to everyone. But now they're starting to respect. Even though they're still laughing, they're like, oh, wait a minute. Maybe these people got something here. Maybe what they're saying is really true. And some of them know it's true, but they're trying to fight against it. Thou makest us a byword among the heathen, a shaking of their head among the people. They're like, oh, look at these niggas, look at these spics, oh Lord. My confusion is continually before me, and the shame of my face hath covered me. For the voice of him that reproacheth and blasphemeth, and they blaspheme, private eye for Yahushua and all that stuff that these devils are doing, by reason of the enemy and avenger. And that's what's happening. Because the Lord gave us into their hands, because we pissed the Most High off. So you could understand the layman's terms. It says, now let's go from there to the same book of Psalms. But let's go to the 79th chapter and the 4th verse. We are become a reproach to our neighbors, a scorn and derision to them that are round about us. How long, Lord, will thou be angry forever? Yeah, because this happened to us because the Lord was angry with us. So the psalmist here, which is Asaph, is asking the Lord how long, and that's how we feel. But we understand that the Lord has his prophecies to still be fulfilled. But the Lord could snap his finger and make it go faster. And that's what we're hoping for. It says, shall thy jealousy burn like fire? Yeah, because this is beyond, even though, like the scriptures say that our light affliction worketh for us a far greater thing for us. I can't think of the quote verbatim, but still, it's like, we desire for the Lord to hurry up and destroy this place and deliver us. It says, pour out thy wrath upon the heathen that have not known thee. Yeah. You kicked us in the ass, now kick these devils in the ass, these other heathens in the ass, deliver us. And upon the kingdoms that are not called upon thy name. Yeah, because we're constantly calling upon your names. For they have devoured Jacob, and they've devoured us and laid waste his dwelling place. Yeah, because Jerusalem is laid waste, but also our people are laid waste, the ones that haven't woke up. You see, and you see all they're pushing out there, everything that's contrary to the scriptures, to keep Jake as an enemy to the Lord. But what they don't count on is the elect, the Lord inspiring the elect to be able to break through all of that, all of those hurdles, all of those obstacles, and do the things that are pleasing in the sight of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Now let's get one more precept on that in the book of Lamentations. Lamentations chapter 2, and right to the point, 15. All that pass by clap their hands at thee. They hiss and wag their head at the daughter of Jerusalem, saying, is this the city that men call the perfection of beauty, the joy of the whole earth? And that's how they're looking at us. They're looking down upon us. And they've done it many, many times. And when they saw Jake about to be raised back up and get back in the good graces of the Most High, they did everything in their power to stop it. Because they knew once, we are back in the good graces of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, there's nothing that they could do to stop it. All thine enemies have opened their mouth against thee. They hiss and gnash their teeth. They say, we have swallowed her up. Certainly this is the day that we look for. We have found, we have seen it. And for a long time, we were downtrodden, down and out. Now, I'm pretty sure not all of the nations knew this. I'm saying as far as like the regular citizens, but the higher ups among all of these different nations, they know exactly who we are. And some of those other people know too. That's what the scriptures say in Revelation 11, that they suffer not their bodies to be put in graves, meaning they didn't put Jake at rest by telling them who they were. It says, the Lord hath done that which he had devised. He hath fulfilled his word that he hath commanded in the days of old. This is the nations saying this. He hath thrown down and hath not pitied. And he caused thine enemy to rejoice over thee. Salaki, this was Jeremiah. He hath set up the horn of thine adversaries. All right. Now, let's go from there. Let's go back to Nehemiah. Let's read the last two verses, Nehemiah 2:19. But when Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the servant, the Ammonite, and Geshem the Arabian heard it, they laughed us to scorn and despised us and said, what is this thing that you do? What the hell are you doing? What you talking about? You know? Will you rebel against the king? Then answered I them and said unto them, the power of heaven, he will prosper us. Therefore, we his servants will arise and build. So that's what we're doing. We're arising and building because the Most High, Yahweh Bashem Shai, is prospering our way. And the reason you know that is because look at the great progress that this knowledge, this truth has done in compassing the world, you know, and being broadcasted so that you have camps all over the world. It says, but you have no portion. This is Nehemiah speaking to these heathens. This is for you, vocab, James White the Edomite, you know, the rest of you heathens that are coming against Israel, but you have no portion, nor right, nor memorial in Jerusalem, because you will be wiped out. You will be nothing more than what you were meant to be. And that was a servant. Because the Lord said that the nations are reputed as being nothing, as a small dust of the balance. You don't even count. And that's the position where we're at right now. We're in that lowly peasant position. But we're being elevated now mentally into greatness. And eventually, once prophecies are fulfilled, we're going to be elevated spiritually. And that's why it begins with, come up hither, my people. And then from that point on, everything is going to be different. And the nations will learn to respect us once again, as they did. But this time, they're going to respect us even far greater than what they did in the past. So now let's go from there. Let's build on the building. Now, this is a spiritual building that's going on. And there's still deriding, mocking, you know. But Spirit still has us focused, strengthened to continue to build. This is 1 Corinthians chapter 3 and verse 16. I'm sorry, before I go there, I skipped. No, I'm in the right spot. 1 Corinthians 3:16. Know ye not that you are the temple of the Most High, and that the Spirit of the Most High dwelleth in you, because Jerusalem is a place before it's a people. The Lord didn't choose a place for the place's sake. He chose a place for the people's sake. As it tells us, and I believe that's 2 Maccabees 5:19 or something like that. So Jerusalem is the people first. The land was there because it was given as an inheritance because of the promise given to Abraham. But the people are the prize. Because the Lord set his love upon us, not because we were more, but because we were fewer, because the Lord loved us. The Lord said that. So now let's jump up to the 6th verse. It says, I have planted, this is the Apostle Paul speaking, Apollos watered, because this word is a seed, and that growing process of that seed and the way it's planted and all that cultivated is the same building process that we see going on with the third temple, or the people of Yahweh Bashem Shai being brought back together, so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native American Indians, and the speckled bird coming back together as one, being built up in this spiritual temple. It says, I have planted Apollos watered, but the Most High gave the increase. So the increase comes from Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, not man. So then neither is he that planteth anything, listen good, neither he that watereth, but the Most High that giveth the increase. You know? And this is going to make even more sense when we go to a couple of other precepts after this. It says, now he that planteth and he that watereth are one. Why? Because they're in the same mindset. Not that they're the same person. Because the Apostle Paul and Apollos were two different people. But they were in one mind frame, and that's to edify, which means to build these Israelites back up. And every man shall receive his own reward according to his own labor. See? So you guys are thinking, you know, that you're just going to do just enough. Hey, well, he that soweth sparingly shall reap sparingly. You know? He that soweth abundantly shall reap abundantly. For we are laborers together with the Most High. Ye are the Most High's husbandry, you know, like the farm. Ye are the Most High's building, the real church, which are the Israelites, the elect of Israel right now, but eventually in the kingdom, all of Israel. According to the grace of the Most High, which is given unto me as a wise master builder. And a master builder is one that knows how to go to a place and be able to build any building from ground up, a sound building from the ground up. So that's where the Apostle Paul was as far as building spiritually these Israelites up. He was a master builder. I have laid the foundation, who was the foundation? Yahushai, which you're going to get into that also. And another builder thereon. So you have to have a foundation, and you have to have those that build upon the foundation. But let every man take heed how he buildeth thereupon, for other foundation can no man lay than that is laid, which is Yahushai HaMashiach. So Yahushai is the foundation. He's the one that's holding the building together. Now, let's go from there to Ephesians, 2nd chapter, and the 20th verse. And are built upon the foundation of the apostles. I'm dealing with the Israelites, the Israelite foreigners, and prophets. So they were built upon that foundation that was already laid, which you're going to get into that, Lord's will. And are built upon the foundation of the apostles and the prophets, Yahushua himself being what? The chief cornerstone. He is the most important stone in this building. He is the one that's holding it all together. He is the one that's supplying whatever is needed for the building. He's the one that took that tab, in whom all the building fitly framed together, meaning it's sound. The foundation is sure and the building is sound. It's fitly framed together. They fit together perfect, like a puzzle. Groweth unto an holy temple in the Lord. So it has to grow. That's why the Apostle Paul told Timothy, when you teach, make sure you teach men that will be able to teach others also. Because that's important, because the teaching is the building, meaning the edification or the building up of the building. It says, in whom ye also are builded together for an habitation of the Most High through the Spirit, because the temple, the sanctuary, was what? Was a shadow of things to come. Because the people are the building that the Most High dwells in. That's why I say you are the temple of the Lord. You know? But when we read Revelation 21, it speaks about that there was no temple there, because the Most High and Yahushua are the temple. You know? And the Israelites are the building that the Most High dwells in. Because remember, the Lord used to have to come down, and that's what the Ark of the Covenant with the mercy seat with the two cherubims was about, so the Lord can appear in the presence of the high priest for Israel. So now in the kingdom, the Lord is going to be there among us. So we are that building. So now let's go from there to Psalms the 127th chapter, in the first verse, it says, except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it. Why? Because the scriptures tell us, what is that, Matthew 7, that when this house was built, the storms came and the winds blew and it didn't knock it down. Why? Because it was built upon a stone. But the house that wasn't built upon a stone, when the floods came and the wind started hitting it, what happened? It demolished, it fell apart. Why? Because it was built upon sand. So it says, except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it. Except the Lord keep the city, the watchman waketh but in vain. Because the Lord is the one that builds, keeps it built, keeps it sound, and protects it. Because you always had those that were trying to take over. Now let's go from there to Romans chapter 8, verse 31. It says, what shall we then say, or what shall we then say to these things? If the Most High be for us, who can be against us? So all of that mocking and ridiculing that vocab and all of them are doing is to no avail, because it's not going to stop the work of the Lord. For what if something not believed? Shall their unbelief make the faith of the Most High without effect? The Most High forbid. Let the Most High be true and every man a liar. That thou mightest be justified in thy sins, and that thou mightest overcome when thou art judged. Salaki, brothers. Now, let's go from there to Matthew chapter 16. Because Yahushua is the head. And then he left certain men in charge. Matthew 16:18. It says, and I say unto thee that thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church. So Peter, because his name was changed to Cephas, which means Peter or rock, that was the stone, the very next stone after Yahushua in the building. And the gates of hell shall not prevail against us, because these international bankers with their New World Order and everything that they're doing, their chants and their seances, and their incantations and their curses that they're putting out against us are not going to work. They're only going to go so far, because the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushua got our back. What the scripture says, it says there is no enchantments against Israel. So they're not going to be able to stop it, because the foundation of it goes back to Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, which set up Peter as the head of the church to build this church. And that's what we're doing right now. We're spiritually building the church as Peter was building the church. And this proves that the church are the people. This is one of the scriptures. It says, and I will give unto thee the keys of the kingdom of heaven. And whatsoever thou shalt bind on earth shall be bound in heaven. And whatsoever thou shalt loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. So we see that we have Yahushua as the head. Then you have Peter under Yahushua, and the rest of the apostles, disciples, so on and so forth. And we read in Ephesians that these Israelite foreigners were built up upon the foundation of Yahushua and the apostles and all of that. All right. Now, let's move from there to another precept, which this precept here proves reincarnation, which that's something that vocab and them deny. They hate that topic. Amos 9:11. In that day will I raise up the tabernacle of David that is fallen. If you could receive it, Peter and David are the same people. The same spirit that was in King David is the same spirit that was in Peter and other great leaders of Israel. In that day will I raise up the tabernacle of David that is fallen. See? So right now the raising up of the tabernacle is being built up, which are the people, which make up the building, which make up the church, which are all Israelites. In that day will I raise up the tabernacle of David that is fallen, and we're witnessing that right now. The bones coming to their bones, and brothers coming together, and brothers from different walks of life that never met each other, bonding as if they knew each other from the womb to the crib to This is the building of the Most High, Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, setting this thing in order before our enemies' eyes to bring us that fame that he said will come to us for all of our shame. and close up the breaches thereof, because the Lord is closing up the gaps between all of the tribes, because there are differences among the tribes that separated the tribes at one time. But when brothers come into this thing, those separations get pushed away, and the Lord builds, builds that relationship up, and I will raise up his ruins, and that's what's happening. The ruins are being raised back up, and I will build it as in the days of old. So right now what's happening is all the 12 tribes are coming back together. When you go back in history, King David and Joab and them, they was not cool with Esau and the other nations. I mean, they had certain ones that they were cool with, but especially the Edomites, they were not cool with the Edomites. They were fucking the Edomites up. So the nations have nothing to do with this. And we read this all throughout the scriptures. But somehow they want to replace Israel, for themselves. This is a blatant lunacy that they're doing. So now let's go from there to Psalms. You know what? I might leave that for another lesson. You know what? Yeah, let me leave that for another lesson, because that could be a whole other lesson. But now let's go, instead of going there, let's go to 1 Peter. 1 Peter chapter 2 and 2. It says, as newborn babes, desire the sincere milk of the word, that you may grow thereby. Why? Because this building has to grow. It has to be edified. If so be you have tasted that the Lord is gracious, to whom coming as unto a living stone, disallowed indeed of men, but chosen of the Most High and precious. Yeah, because the other precepts that I was gonna read was dealing with Yahushua being the cornerstone, the chief cornerstone. It says, ye also, as lively stones, because Yahushua is a chief cornerstone, ye also as lively stones are built up a spiritual house. See, not a physical house, a spiritual house, which is what? The tabernacles of David being built up spiritually. And these lively stones represent the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel, just as Aaron that wore the ephod and other high priests that wore the ephod, you had the 12 stones, and those 12 stones, which are set up in 4 rows of 3, had all different stones, and those different stones were a representation of the children of Israel. Each stone for each tribe. There were 12 altogether on that breastplate. So it says, you also as lively stones are built up a spiritual house and holy priesthood. See? And holy priesthood. This is only to the nation of Israel, to offer up spiritual sacrifices. And that's what we're offering up, spiritual sacrifices acceptable to the Most High by Yahushua. Because through Yahushua is how we are able to please the Lord, the Most High Yahweh. So that's how we become acceptable. So we're offering up these spiritual sacrifices. That's how we offer up what? The calves of our lips. Which are what? Which are the sacrifices today. We offer up our bodies when we go out there and we teach on these streets, as a living sacrifice. You see? Now, let's go from there to Hebrews 3 and 6. But Yahushua as a son over his own house, whose house are we? See? So we are the house of Yahushua. If we hold fast the confidence and the rejoicing of the hope firm unto the end. Because the scriptures say, Yahushua said himself, he that endureth to the end, the same shall be saved. So Yahushua is over this house. He is the head. And we are that house, the spiritual house that's being built in the sight of our enemies. Now let's go to Isaiah 61 and 1. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because the Lord hath anointed me to preach good tidings unto the meek. He hath sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of the prison to them that are bound, meaning these Israelites that were downtrodden, meaning us, to build us back up. Lift up the hanging hands and the feeble knees. Shake yourself from the dust, arise. And that's what's happening right now. Why? Because the building is going down. So those that are able, you need to get involved, get into it. Yahweh said, the harvest is plenteous, but the laborers are few. Pray the Lord of the harvest that he will send laborers into his vineyard. Because it's building to do. It's go time to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord and the day of vengeance of our power, to comfort all that mourn. Yeah, because the day of the Lord is coming. The vengeance of the Lord is coming. And this is a comfort to all of us that are mourning, that there is hope, that we won't always be in this condition. There's a lot more to this life than what we see. And the Lord has allowed us to see things that are coming. It says, to appoint unto them that mourn in Zion, to give unto them beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness, that they might be called the trees of righteousness, the planting of the Lord, that he might be glorified. And this is why the Lord is doing it, so that Yahweh himself, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, can be glorified. This is why he picked us up out the dust. He shook us off and cleaned us up and washed us, and purges us for his glorification. And they shall build, see, the old wastes. And that's what's happening right now. They shall raise up the former desolations. Yeah, because we were desolate, now we're being raised up. And they shall repair the waste cities, see? And that's what's happening right now. We're spiritually being raised up as that city, as New Jerusalem, the desolation of many generations. And strangers shall stand and feed your flocks. Why? Because these nations are going to be our servants, as they were supposed to be. And the sons of the alien shall be your plowmen and your vine dressers. But you shall be named the priests of the Lord. Men shall call you the ministers of our power. Why? Because we're all going to be priests as promised. Okay? It says, you shall eat the riches of the Gentiles, and in their glory shall you boast yourselves. Now, let's go real quick to Lamentation. This is one of my favorite scriptures, Lamentation 1:21. It says, they have heard that I sigh. This is dealing with the nations have heard that we sigh. There is none to comfort me. All mine enemies have heard of my trouble, and they have heard it. They see our trouble. They add to our troubles. They mock and ridicule when the Lord is setting us up to be built back up. They are glad that thou hast done it. They're glad the Lord got us in this condition. It says, thou will bring the day that thou hast called, and they shall be like unto me. One quick way of saying it, our phrase is trading places. And you brothers out there and sisters that haven't seen that movie Trading Places with Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd, I suggest you go watch that movie. A very good movie, came out in the 80s. It shows you the role reversal of Esau being taken from power and Jake being put up into that power. You see? And that's what's going to happen. A total role reversal. Now, let's go from there to back to Isaiah 61 and verse 7 now. For your shame you shall have double, and for your confusion they shall rejoice in their portion. Yeah, because we're going to rejoice when we get all this back, because we're going to be rewarded for all of our downtroddenness. Therefore in their land they shall possess the double, everlasting joy shall be unto them. Yeah, because we need the pampering. The other nations had their turn. For I, the Lord, love judgment. I hate robbery for burnt offering, and I will direct their work in truth, and I will make an everlasting covenant with them, meaning with Israel. And their seed shall be known among the Gentiles, because they're going to recognize. No longer are we going to be called spicks and spooks and wetbacks and tontos, none of that. We're going to be recognized as who we are, the kings, the princes of the earth. The princesses also, tribe of Judah and Benjamin and Levi and Ephraim and Simeon and Manasseh. No more nigga, spick, spook, wetback, none of that shit. And their seed shall be known among the Gentiles, and their offspring among the people. All that see them shall acknowledge them. Why? Because we were not reckoned among these nations. We were looked in disdain. We were looked at as if we're not even worthy to be in the same place. We're not even worthy of receiving anything. That all we're worthy of is just to be slaves, just to be on the bottom, with the worst jobs, waiting at their beck and call. They're in for a rude awakening. All that see them shall acknowledge them. They are the seed which the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai hath blessed. And this is that promise that was given to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Who came out of Jacob? All of the Israelites. That's where the Lord's promise went to, the oath. And everyone is going to recognize that on the planet Earth. I will greatly rejoice in the Lord. My soul shall be joyful in my power. And it's starting now, but they're not recognizing it now. But they will. For he hath clothed me with the garments of salvation. He hath covered me with the robe of righteousness. As a bridegroom decketh himself with ornaments, and as a bride adorneth herself with her jewels. Because we're going to be decked out. Right now, the Lord is decking us out, man. We're just going through the rehearsals. It says, for as the earth bringeth forth her bud, and as the garden causeth the things that are sown in it to spring forth, so the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushua will cause righteousness and praise to spring forth before all nations, because all nations will recognize us. They will recognize who we are. They will give us the praise and the glory due to us. You know, they will bow down to us once again. They will exalt us. They will laud us. You know, like right now, everybody looks at Esau as this great individual, and they're nothing but the fucking devil that the Bible speaks of, a vile, despicable person, and they're giving him all the praise and laud as if he's this great individual. Well, the roles is going to reverse, man. It's going to be a role reversal. I got a couple more precepts. Let's go to Ezekiel 36 and 35, and then I got one more precept after that. Ezekiel 36 and 35. It says, and they shall say, this land that was desolate is become like the Garden of Eden. Yeah, because our land is going to be built back up, you know, and the waste and the desolate and ruined cities are become fenced and are inhabited. Yeah, and we're going to be glorified, and our land is going to be glorified. Then the heathen that are left round about you shall know that I, the Lord, build the ruined places and plant that was desolate. I, the Lord, have spoken it, and I will do it. And they're going to acknowledge, trust, and believe that. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, I will yet for this be inquired of by the house of Israel, and we're still inquiring to do it for them. I will increase them with men like a flock, as the holy flock, as the flock of Jerusalem in her solemn feasts. So shall the waste cities be filled with flocks of men, and they shall know that I am the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. That's right. And the last precept I have is in the book of Revelation 21 and 14, and you can read the whole chapter. It says, and the wall of the city had 12 foundations, and in them the names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb, which is going to also include the nation of Israel. And that's why you have all these different stones, which are representation of the 12 tribes, you know, of the 12 apostles, you know, and that's scripture. All right. So the Lord is going to glorify us. So in closing, they laughed us to scorn. Well, you can laugh now, but you're going to cry later. You can laugh us now, but you'll cry it later. It's an inside joke. Let's go real quick. What is that? Is that Luke 6 and 24, is it? Right, 25. But woe unto you that are full, for you shall hunger. Woe unto you that laugh now, for you shall mourn and weep. And you nations, you will mourn and weep, beginning with you international banking families among Esau and the rest of you devils out there. You know, you will have a hard way to go. So with that, I pray that your brothers have been edified. They laughed at the scorn, but because what we're doing is we're building through the Spirit, we're building back up the nation of Israel, and they think that we're lunatics and bugged out. But that's the same thing that them heathen did to our forefathers. So with that, I pray that your brothers have been edified. And to the next time I say, Shalom.